Hi, my name is Merlin Peter, and I'm a beekeeper in sunny, sweltering Catalonia. Now, I think this will be a good starter video for many a beekeeper who is just getting into the profession. I had probably two to three active years of failure, and this is my first real year of success, and it just felt like I learned to play the didgeridoo or something. It was like a eureka moment when I could understand the bees' cycles and their needs. And a lot of that was supplemented by watching videos on YouTube by many a beekeeper like myself who learned just through observation and through practice and through talking about it. Now, these bees have become my main occupation here. In Catalonia, we have olive, almond, carob, all providing a source of nectar. And various other plants which are incredibly important during the earlier parts of the season, like rosemary and thyme. And even now we have pear cactus, which is becoming sort of an ornamental weed, but again, a very rich source of nectar. And as the year passes, you begin to realize that many plants are actually beneficial, but they have priorities in terms of the quality of the foods, their food requirements. So anyway, at this present moment, we are going through what you probably call a dry season. The rains have stopped, the flowering is almost completely finished. Most people have taken their beehives up to the mountains. And the nearest ones here are the Pyrenees, or further inland towards the plains. And the wetter parts in the south of Spain. We have a very extreme climate here sometimes. We've had a perfect spring, so I went from 3 hives to 18 in the course of 2-3 months, and I caught 6 swarms, and I made 3 artificial swarms, and I bought 3 hives in, which is also a good thing to do because you're bringing in new genetics. So you're bringing in genetics from other parts of the country, and those particular hives are doing exceptionally well. Coming down from Mora, which is about 100, maybe up to about 100 kilometres further inland. We're here about 6 kilometres from the sea. I've already looked at a couple of hives which I sold to my neighbour to recuperate some of those costs. And as part of a beekeeping experience, you probably have to look into that in terms of queen rearing and also making your economy work. As a permaculturist also, I'm looking to get some sort of bonanza crop, probably not this year, obviously, because we're going through the dry season now, but certainly next year I'll have a good stock ready to go. Problems, I was fraught with problems. Last year, because of empty hives, the wax moth had actually increased to huge numbers, and every time I had a small hive, they invaded, went in, messed it all up. The wax moth itself is very more damaging than I would say any other pest. But people here say that the wax moth goes in when the hive is weak or there's something wrong with the queen. Personally, insects compete, and when I see the deaf hawk moth, for instance, with 20 to 30 bees all over it, trying to get in through one of the entrances of these hives, you've got to really ask questions about how much food source they are around. I mean, they are honey robbers, basically, and they will just go in there and they will live in a hive full of thousands of bees. And I've stepped on some of these hawk moths, and they just don't die. Their bodies are incredibly robust, a bit like the bees in its own way, And then I stood back and I thought to myself, well, what am I doing here interfering? If you can't maintain your bee colonies to a healthy state, and so that the bees can deal with their own pests, then you're going against the flow of nature. So as a permaculturist, I'm always looking at natural techniques. This year, to get my hives up, I'm adding sugar syrup and sugar paste. And these are very good things to do when colonies are small, to help get them going and to help them build comb. You need comb for the queen to lay eggs, and the more eggs she lays, the more workers that you're going to get at the end of the year. Bees don't live that particularly long, so she's got to lay as much as possible throughout the year. But at this present time, I've just checked over a couple of hives, and one is actually thriving, and the other one was actually eggless. So there's a concern there. When I made my last video, unfortunately, I had the camera facing the wrong way, so I never published it. But one of the things I noted was that the bees. Well, let me show you. I'm just getting my smoker ready because the bees respond in different ways at different times in the day, depending if the foragers are out, depending if there's a lot of brood in a hive box. But it's about high noon, and the lesson for today, really, I want to show some of you is I'm going to split a dadant. Well, it's a Langstroth box with a spacer put on the top to make it into a dadant, which means that I can put a deeper frame inside it. Now I'm going to show you that. But it's about high noon, and it's high humidity, so I was expecting storms, and this is always a good time probably to think about splits. It's a bit late in the year now because there's no flower, so I have to keep my eager eyes on this particular split, which I want to do. But there's various reasons why I want to do it, and one is because I can't expect the hive I want to split. It's called an artificial swarm. I can't expect that hive to produce any honey until the end of the year. And I have this box hanging around, and I've just taken out a spare frame full of pollen and honey resources inside it. And it's quite tempting just to make up a small, what you call a transporter box. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but up on top of the dry stone wall there's a green box, and they're called transporter boxes. Now, you're not supposed to keep bees in there, but that's what you transport bees into when you're selling on or you're moving to a new location. Well, I'm going to show you that as well. Anyhow, it was tempting because I've got quite a bit of drawn out comb in there, and it's only a 5-frame box, that transporter box. And the hive I'm going to split is probably that one over there. I don't know if you can notice it, but it has a spacer in it. So that's really a Langstroth with a smaller frame inside it, with a space on the top, which means you can put a dadant, which is about that depth. And then on top of that, there's a super. Now, I've had no real success issue with super, so I'm not really too concerned. But what I started to do is take out the queen excluders, because I want the bees and the queen to actually go up a bit and draw out the comb in preparation for autumn and the flower and the rain that's going to come in autumn. So it feels good. Here comes a cool wind, which means that we may get a drop of rain a bit later on, coming down from the mountains of Mora. But I've started making notes on top of my hives, and basically, for me, it's adequate. And to give you an example, on this particular hive here, I put QR, which means queen right. All of these are queen right, but on this particular box, I've actually written the word aggro, because the queen actually came out and attacked me, and it was in a very aggressive moment in whilst I was actually going through the box, and I just had second concerns about that. The fact that the queen needed to attack me personally. She landed on my boot, and I managed to brush her back inside the box. She'd find her own way back in there anyway, but there's obviously a concern there, and this is why not too much meddling, but continual observance of your hives in and out is very important to a beekeeper's profession. Now I'm just waiting for this smoker to smoke up a bit more. So this is the box I'm going to split. Queen right, it has a super, it has a spacer, and it has a Langstroth base on it. So whilst I'm doing this, the other thing to remember as a beekeeper, you want space to be able to get in and around your hive. So you need this walkway. As a beekeeper, equipment begins to mount up in terms of costs. And I've got this on eBay for no more than about €13. It's a summer suit. It's exactly what you need in hot, humid conditions like Catalonia during the summer. And then during the winter, I've got an African suit, which is much thicker. A West African suit. But that was in a previous video. So let me zip up. Now, I doubt if these suits will last longer than about a year and a bit before you get tears in them, and then you think to yourself, well, is it actually worth repairing them, or should we just buy another suit? And I think that is the current modern day industry on many an item. And I'm going to try to do this split with no gloves. Now, as soon as they start stinging me, I'm going to put my gloves on, because there's a limit to how much I want to suffer. But it feels like a good day, and it's a day for actually getting in there and getting a bit personal with your bees. So the first thing I noticed is that they have some food sources, which probably means that they have enough down below, which they prefer, rather than sugar syrup. Having a look to see if there's an unexpected queen underneath the top board, but no. See, this queen excluder is on the top because I'm trying to get the queen to come up. I'm trying to get the workers to come up and draw the comb out. Now I'm trying to keep distance here because there's 5 hives in front of me and I don't want to annoy any other ones. But this is my transporter box. And if I feel that there's a reason why I shouldn't split that hive, there's too much of a risk for one reason or another, I'm just going to abort. But this is what I want to show you. So this is a Langstroth, and you can just see the glistening honey and pollen in there, which will make it a very good starter pack for a new colony of bees. So how am I going to do it? Well, I could try and transport the queen into this box, or I can just transport a bunch of eggs. Even better, eggs that maybe have been drawn out into queen cells. That's one way of actually ameliorating the problem of queen cells, by actually artificially swarming the hive yourself and getting the queen cells to hatch in a new hive. So pollen resources up here, but very good laying space for a new queen. And here again, we have what they call play cups. And this would have not had any eggs in it at all, but they practice building queen cells. And that queen cell would normally have been quite longer. It always gives me a great joy to actually find the queen, because I'm not a great queen spotter. So that's the Langstroth size inside a Daedont box. Now here's a super, and they've cleaned it up a little bit. They've done various things with the wax here. Some of it's drawn out, but it's not happening. There's not enough flower now. Lots of holes in the comb, and they're probably just throughways to get from A to B quicker. So I'm just going to smoke them. Bear in mind the queen could be in this box because there's no queen excluder. So the first lesson is to observe. What I'm observing is a risk. They just haven't drawn out enough comb. For the queen to be laying sufficient amounts. So the process looks like it's going to be aborted. There's a little bit of comb drawn out on the end frames. Now I'm going very gently. This used to be an aggressive hive, but I'm trying to get them to familiarise themselves with me. Just making sure the queen isn't on there and I accidentally squish her. As I say, all of these are queen right, these cells. And, not these cells, these boxes. And that's been my great learning curve this year. Stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And basically, is to ensure that small colonies get a good footing. All right. It don't take long for them to get aggressive. Okay, gloves on. Still got holes in my gloves. And I've had days where I've been stung 20, 30 times. I've got a natural immunity to histamine. So, a nice bit of drawn out comb there. So this particular hive has a history of being aggressive. It's what I was expecting. The thing is not to fear. When you start fearing too much, you sweat a lot, and that can really trigger off a bigger reaction in the bees. So here's a frame almost full of honey. A little bit's capped at the top, and on the other side it's half capped. Bees don't like you stealing their resources, so I'm going to put him back down. I hope you can hear me. It's always good practice to keep hold of your hive tool. I'm sorry if I can't speak to the camera all the time. Looking for the queen, but what I do want to show you is the capped honey stores at the top, capped brood, and a very compact area in such a small frame, especially when you consider Catalonian frames try to go big and heavy. So this is very easy to manage, which is why it's popular in the world, because they don't get so heavy. But all that's capped brood, and you can actually see some of the larvae in there. I'm looking for eggs, and I'm thinking that maybe I'm looking for the queen also. I'm thinking maybe you see it's an